Oh my gosh. Welcome to More Up North. I am so glad you're joining us. It's breakup season, isn't it? Oh, such fun. I know everything's melting down. And we thought it might be time to have a little bit of fun before we remind you of some of the other things. So Mr. Fred Newman from Prairie Home Companion is going to be here with us. I know, and I haven't really got to talk to him much, but I thought I'd just tell a story and see if he could do the sounds. I know, we're going to see how this goes. It might be heavily edited. I don't know. We're also coming up on the anniversary of both the '64 earthquake and the 1989 Exxon Valdez oil spill. And lessons learned and lessons that we haven't learned with our panel. And so I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a great show. Stick around for More Up North. All right, stop, I'll never leave. This will be a 2-hour show. My first guest graduated from the Harvard Business School, swam with the corporate sharks, and wore business suits every single day. Lucky for us, he ditched those suits and forged a career doing what he once did behind teachers' backs. Oh, I'm sure he didn't get in any trouble for that at all. He's now an Emmy Award-winning actor, writer, and comedian, and pretty sure he's the best known as Garrison Keillor sound effects guru. You can hear him every Saturday on Prairie Home Companion, and on Sunday mornings too. I make it on Sunday mornings. Sometimes I listen twice. Please welcome Fred Newman.
Thank you.
How am I going to do this show? Really?
Okay,
I'm so glad you're here. Why are you in Alaska, first of all?
For the theater, for Cyrano's.
Right.
The 20th anniversary. I'm so happy to be here.
It's wonderful.
No, that's a great institution. And 20 years, a theater surviving for 20 years is right there. But a theater like Cyrano's, it does this whole range and so community involved. It's fantastic.
It
and
is.
Sandy Harper is a force of nature, too. She's a tectonic plate all to herself. You know, she's amazing. So,
do I make the sound for that?
Oh, yes. Although, I should really work on an impression of Sandy Harper. That would be good.
That would be
Hello,
something.
Frederick. How are you? It's good to see you. No, she's so gracious, too. So,
Yeah.
I met her when Prairie Home, we did our show here.
Mm-hmm.
The show that we still say was the best audience we ever had. No joke. I'm not pandering. That I describe it to someone else that it's like when you're up there with Prairie Home, we're throwing lures out there and seeing what people will strike at and laugh at. You guys, you struck at everything, and even when they were pretty lousy lures, you gave us credit for trying. So thank you.
We're known for our fishing.
Yeah, that's true.
You know.
Well, and your weirdness. That's why I'm here. This is the weird state, I love that.
If we could just have a weird pipeline, our dividend checks.
Oh heck
would
yeah!
Really be
Send the weirdness to the lower 48.
Because they're fresh out. We've noticed.
We
did send weirdness down. Where it was like, here.
Oh, you did.
Palin.
Oh yeah, right. You did send weirdness down. That was anti-weird actually.
That was terrifying.
That was
it?
terrifying. Yeah.
You guys didn't know what was coming, did you?
No, we did not know it was coming. No, heck no. Oh no, we didn't know that.
What is it? You know what is weird about? I know you do all these impressions. The thing about her was I'd never heard that voice before. Like, I had interviewed her and never heard that accent. It was like she had had too many of those green bean casserole hot dish things from...
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, okay, yeah. No, it's a little Minnesota, but then it went into cartoon land for us. It was more
You're so
exaggerated.
Kind.
Oh, am I being cruel? Am I being ugly?
No, you're being kind by saying it went to cartoon world.
Okay, it was really interesting in that way. I mean, interesting... I'm not sure a good or bad way, but it was fascinating for us, and the likes of which we have never seen before down there.
Right.
But the weirdness is, if you grow up going like I did, I was such an odd child that when I come here and people go, yeah, that's cool, That's so great. You know, I mean, oh God.
Okay, so
My people. You know, I just feel really at home here. So, I met Sandy backstage, and she was telling me about Syrian. I was like, that's so cool. And I said, if you ever want somebody to come up here, because that sounds like something I would love to, if I could be of help. And she asked me up, and heck yeah. So I struck that lure in a second. You know, boom on it. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, and congratulations to Cyrano's for 20 years, and congratulations to Anchorage for having, you know, people brave enough to bring those kind of arts and to really step out and take chances that, you know, they don't always do even in bigger cities.
And you know what that is? It's community hygiene. It makes people talk about the stuff that you don't necessarily talk about. It pokes the community, and everyone talks, and it gathers people and artists together. It coalesces a whole. How great is that?
Yeah.
You know, it's just healthy for everybody.
Can I just absolutely. Can I just go back to something?
Okay.
Because this question came to me, and I probably shouldn't ask it, and producers might even edit it. But when you did this, I just thought, do you do sound effects on your dates? Have you ever, and how did that go?
Well, my wife put a quietus on that real quick. No, I did. It's not. I have to say the sound effects and honking and you do a couple of Led Zeppelin impression stuff. It's not a babe magnet. It's you attract kind of homeless people, but not
right.
Not
like I was
people
just
you want to
wondering,
date.
like how long did that work?
No, it's an odd and dark art, that can get out of control real quick.
Have you ever gotten out of control?
Yeah, actually, I have. I think, in fact, let me do that now because I'm going to see if you're going to edit it or not.
Okay.
Yeah, because this was an actual thing I did on a television show. I just released this book, Mouth Sounds, that I did 100 years ago. Left Newsweek and out that sort of Mitt Romney-esque life that I could have aspired to. And
did you put a dog on top of your car? Seamus, the dog?
Yeah, I strapped that on the front bumper.
By the way...
Yeah. The second show I went on was a kid show, new show on Nickelodeon, and I didn't know better. But you don't fly off a set. That's not what you do in television. This was the second television show I did. The first, David Letterman. This was the second, and I'd left Newsweek, and so I did my impression of a housefly, which I'll do now. And I'm looking around for a place to do this on. Okay, let's see if I can go.
Do you have a mic?
No, I don't need a mic.
Okay.
I just need a wall. Okay, here we go. Okay, look. So I just stood up on the show, and
Okay.
So what I did is I went and landed on the wall. The cameras went off the set and sort of followed me back to where they were. And after the show, they fired the host and they asked me if I wanted to host the show. That same fly, I was at Harvard Business School. Professor called on me. I wasn't prepared, and I stood up and went and stuck on the back wall of the classroom.
Did you get an A?
Well, normally you fail, completely fail if you can't present the case. And I went after class, peeled myself off the wall, went down to Professor Hayes. I said, I'm out of breath from that fly. It's a lot of... and I said, Professor, I'm sorry. I wish there's something I could do to make that up. He said, that was a very creative solution. And I passed the course. So twice that fly, by doing really the wrong thing, it works. So some of the sound stuff works.
So you're encouraging kids at home to sort of go with that?
Yeah, go with that. If that's their nest, if that's their weirdness, go for it. But you don't. It's not an authoritation. A thumb against authority. I think it's most teachers are onto it anyway. They'll use it like, give me a drum roll, please, and I'm going to pass out papers now, and I would do that. They would, I wasn't a bad kid.
Right.
I was
you were
enhancing
just having
the
fun.
class. Exactly, and helping the class. I really didn't do it for. I didn't do it for attention, really. I just thought it was cool.
Okay, so we just have another minute.
I know. I just
minute or two.
Completely ruined your segment.
No,
there.
you didn't.
I'm
but
sorry.
I wanted to see if you could maybe do. I was going to tell Alaska's story, but I would have had to come up with that too. So.
You have a story? Do that.
Well, no, because I would like to have some. Are you? You're okay with that?
Yeah. Do it, because you know you're going to
But
cut out that fly segment. So
But I don't know how many sounds that you know. Will you just make it up?
I'll make it up.
All right.
And if what I don't know, then you'll fill in for me. There you
All
go.
right.
Yeah. No, I'm
I had an
happy to
uncle
try.
that could make sounds on his
Can I
armpit
get
when I was a
water?
kid, but it
Some
wasn't
water.
quite
a little
the
water
same.
Would be great. Oh, here.
Why don't we run to a quick break? Can we come back and do another segment? Yeah, and with an Alaska story, because I got to come up with it on the break. I know. We'll be right back. All right. Welcome back to More Up North. We've been able to hold Mr. Fred Newman over for a couple more minutes, and so you're the professional. Should we just try it?
Yeah. What? Go. I'm
All
there.
right. So I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this story when I was a kid, and when I was very young, I was living on the beach, and I was walking with my dad, and we were walking down to the point, Harriet Point, and it was a pretty nice day, not too windy or anything, but I was like, what is that sound? What is that sound I keep hearing? And it just sounded, I don't know, it was very strange. And suddenly we see a helicopter come around the edge of the point. And here comes the Coast Guard, right? Well, we weren't expecting the Coast Guard, but neither were the bears either. And there were a couple of bears that were sitting on top of a dead beluga, rolling in it. There's nothing like a dead beluga. God. And so here they come. They're afraid of the helicopter that's just going over. And I'm like, water's deep. I'm not getting in it. But I ran into it. I did. I was like, let's get down here. And so we went down, and we went around the point, and there was the same old walrus. Yes, we used to have walrus. And that thing, 2,500 pounds of hottie, let me tell you. He was just old, broken tusk. And the smell. Yeah, walruses smell. They cough, they fart, they do all kinds of things you don't want to know walrus does. It's true. So we figured, well, Chopper's gone, walrus is doing fine, the bears are, they're back wallering in the beluga. So Papa and I decide we start walking back to the cabin where Mom was at, and I see this thing floating in the surf, banging around. I said, what do you think that is? It's red, and it's shiny, and I like red and shiny. I'm 8. Pop said, I don't know.
Hi, it's me, Sarah. No, sorry, no.
And Pop says, well, it's a big red board, and it was. It was about 12 by 2 by 6 feet long, and it was red and it was shiny, and the whole way back, I drug that thing across every single rock on that beach, probably half a mile. And I was making plans. I was making all kinds of plans what I was going to do with that red board. And we got back to the cabin, and Poppy says, Shannyn, I need your red board. It's important. And I'm pretty sure I cried. And I was like, well, 8 years, not 8 months. But so I said, okay, Pop, you can have my red board. You can have my red board. All right. And so I went to help Mom, and I was just helping her wash up some pots and pans, and the next thing I hear is a chainsaw. And I thought, for the love of God, he's got my red board. What's he gonna do with my red board? And then I start hearing hammering and carrying on and all this racket, and I'm just sick at heart. So pretty soon I walk out by the creek, and I'm just looking out and I thought, well, we'll see what he did in my board. It's probably all splinters. Mom says it's dinner time, rings a bell, and
Dinner time!
And I walk in the cabin, and sitting there is a bench made out of a red board. And my pop said, I thought you needed a place to sit down. And that was my red board bench. Best bench of my life.
Thank you, Daddy.
Well done. Well done.
Oh,
Well done.
we'll be back with our panel.
Oh, yeah. Glad to.
Welcome back. I'm still recovering from laughing, and this panel ought to help bring me back down to earth. Exxon Valdez first responders, actually all of us here. He's a marine conservation and sustainability consultant, and anytime, anywhere there's an oil spill from the Exxon Valdez to the Eastern Mediterranean to the Gulf of Mexico, they call the professor. Please welcome my good friend, Rick Steiner. And wow, this is such an honor. He's an international diplomat to the Arctic Council and president of the Prince William Sound Citizens Advisory Council. Please welcome Mr. Walt Parker. And right here in kicking distance, he is APRN journalist, host of Talk of Alaska, and legendary Alaska broadcaster. On Sundays, the old bull rider saddles up and spins classic Americana music for 3 hours on the must-hear radio program, The Truckstop. Please welcome my good friend, Steve Heimel. Welcome, gentlemen. All right, Mr. Parker, you're in charge of sound effects for this first segment.
Okay.
I'm kidding. I wouldn't do that to you. We've got a professional here. I don't know how they do it. But we're coming up on the anniversary here of several things. One was the 9.2 earthquake that struck Good Friday, March 27th, 1964. And then we also have the 23rd anniversary of the Exxon Valdez that happened on Good Friday, which was on the 24th in '89. Not really a particularly good day for us, Good Friday, huh? As a state?
Yeah, I think we always get worried every Good Friday these days.
I did both of those.
Which was worse?
Oh, the quake was scarier for a minute. But, after the cats ran out of the house and ran back in, why we went back in. The cats were busy eating the dinner we just sat down to. And the quake chased us out.
But the aftermath, it seems as though it was easier to rebuild from the earthquake in some ways, in many respects, than it has been to be able to recover from the Exxon Valdez disaster.
Yeah, many ways. The quake, nobody was responsible, and everybody who pitched in afterwards did very well at doing it.
Right, you couldn't sue
While
God
they did
on that
hotels, I did airports.
Right.
The people have done a lot of research on industrial disasters and found that they're fundamentally different than natural disasters. And industrial disasters like nuclear plant problems and oil spills and chemical plant explosions, things like that, cause a social breakdown in communities, and people start blaming each other, and it causes what the social psychologists call corrosive communities. And I lived in one at the time, Cordova. It was a great community before the oil spill, and immediately after it became the textbook example of a corrosive community. So,
Steve?
Well, I just wonder about the Gulf of Mexico and how people are doing there, because there's so many people along that coast. I myself have, been on those beautiful white sands around Biloxi, and they've been hammered by disaster after disaster. I mean, don't forget Katrina as
Right.
well. And it's complicated. I mean, for me, I'm amazed at the amnesia that sets in after something like the Exxon Valdez. When we went back 10 years later, we discovered that there was a mythology surrounding the spill that you couldn't break through. It was 11 million gallons. Well, guess what? It was a hell of a lot more than 11 million gallons, but you can't get that out of people's heads. There were two iconic images that were constantly seen and are still seen. One of them was produced by Exxon. The other was produced by the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. And they just keep repeating the same images over and over again, the flopping birds and the hosing off workers.
Right.
Over and over and over again. It's as if the more we talk about it, the less sense we make. We don't learn a damn thing. And then Deepwater Horizon happens, and boy, you could have predicted everything that happened.
Right, and they're like, how did this happen? How could this have possibly happened? It's like, I don't know, gravity?
It's
Yeah.
just, this is what happens when you do this.
When you don't when you don't pay attention, this is what happens, and it's a habitual problem. Government and the oil industry habitually overstate potential benefits of oil development and understate risks. We know we learned a lot of hard lessons from the Exxon Valdez, and unfortunately, as Steve's saying, there is this sort of systemic amnesia that sets in. People don't want to remember it, the politicians don't. And what's the old saying? If you don't, those who ignore history are condemned to repeat it.
And we are.
There we are.
And we
Yeah.
absolutely are. And in 1989, when the Exxon oil spill happened, I was on a fishing tender coming from Sitka to Prince William Sound and worked that spill. And, the lessons I learned is that they're not going to tell you the truth. They're not going to tell you anything.
Yeah.
And right now we're seeing, I remember at the time them saying, you guys can't wear respirators. Respirators, no respirators. There were guys that would come back to my boat at night who were like having these conversations. Dude, when you pee, does it smell like diesel? Yeah, isn't that weird?
Yeah.
They did the
Is
same
it
thing in
weird?
the Gulf too.
It's like you're peeing what something that smells like diesel. This isn't like your asparagus weird moment. This is like
Beets are worse.
yeah, or beets. Okay, let's. Do we really go here? But honestly, it's like what it did. I mean, the average life expectancy of an Exxon Valdez worker is 51. Okay, that's CNN. This has been out there. But the thing that really gets me is that we know that people didn't wear respirators because if you say, as a company, okay, you guys should wear respirators and you require them, you are admitting that there is danger. So there has actually been some computer program that's decided, look, it's cheaper to let people be exposed and die of this than it is to admit that there's a danger, they could be exposed, and then you're going to have to pay for their health as well.
That's the human health impact, and it's a big one.
Right.
Now imagine we're mammals. Imagine the mammals living in the water, the marine mammals, them having to not only breathe the vapors over the slick, but they were also surfacing right in the oil.
Right.
We watched 2 different pods of killer whales doing this, and they were actually inhaling the oil and the vapors. Let me read you a very quick quote.
We got to
Okay.
run to a break. We're going to come back. We're going to get Rick's quote, and we're going to talk more about this. And you're going to want to pay attention because, well, we don't want this to happen again. We'll be right back with more Up North. Welcome back. We're talking about, of course, we're up on the 23rd anniversary of the Exxon Valdez spill, and I guess it's hard to say anniversary because those are supposed to be something that people really celebrate. It's more of a memorial every year for me, having remembered that happening that day and in real time and what it all was. You wanted to share a quote with us?
Yeah, Chief Walter Meganick from Port Graham, one of the native villages along the coast of Kenai Fjords, just outside Prince William Sound, I think encapsulated the environmental impact and the shock that people felt that summer as eloquently as anyone. And his quote was simply this: "What we see now is death, death not of each other, but of the source of life, the water. It is too shocking to understand. Never in the millennium of our tradition have we thought it possible for the water to die, but it is true." And unfortunately, Chief Meganick was correct. Thousands of marine mammals died that first year, hundreds of thousands of birds. Much of the intertidal zone was killed, and today, 23 years later, most of the injured fish and wildlife populations and habitats have not fully recovered. 3 species, a mammal, a bird, and a fish, are listed by the government researchers as not recovering at all 23 years later. So put that in the risk calculation for Arctic drilling and you come up with a very different scenario.
Oh, yeah. The reason these 2 spills are very different, the big difference is Alaska went into Exxon Valdez having been asleep at the switch for 10 years. The reason we were asleep at the switch is we passed a lot of good legislation. The oil companies sued us 3 months after Valdez opened, the Valdez terminal opened. Why did they sue us? We were preempting the federal government. Well, the reason we wrote that legislation is because the federal legislation was lousy.
This was on the double hull issue primarily,
Well,
right? Yeah.
it's on everything.
Yeah.
And so
This was also on, correct me if I'm wrong, that there had to be a response crew there,
yeah,
and that
well,
there
that's
had to be all of the
first thing they
equipment.
got rid of was the full-time response crew.
'Cause they didn't wanna pay for
parceled
them.
it out to, as part-time to a lot of people, and they got no training, no equipment, none of the things you talked about earlier.
Well, as Exxon takes a lot of the rap for this, and frankly, I don't think they got wrapped hard enough for it. But BP, Alyeska pipeline, they were in charge of having that spill response equipment there, and
Oh,
it was
yeah.
iced into dry dock, and had been iced in for over a year.
Yeah.
I mean, it
and,
wasn't even. They
Same
couldn't get
same things going now. We have a ancient pipeline.
Ancient.
We've got the tankers are in reasonable shape, but the ancient pipeline, none of the owners are putting any money into Alyeska to fix that pipeline. We're just sitting here waiting for another pump 9 or another spill to happen.
And he's the man to tell you. He was here watching it being built, trying to get him to build it right.
And if you'll recall, the promises that were made by government and industry to the people of America and the people of Alaska at the time to get permission to build the Great Pipe were that not one drop of oil is going to spill, sit back, relax, be happy. We're going to have a state-of-the-art vessel traffic monitoring system, the best in the world, double hull tankers, that was a promise. As well, they promised a state-of-the-art spill response capability. No sooner had the ink dried on the Trans-Alaska Pipeline Act that all those promises were forgotten, and there we go. And that's a lesson for the Arctic
those
as well.
promises were made is they had two tough governors to deal with, and but as soon as they had a pipeline and a terminal,
Right.
everything went out the window. The big difference between these two is that Alaska, Cordova, Valdez, all the coastal communities who are now part of the Prince William Sound Regional Citizens Advisory Council, those were all really unhappy. And Anchorage didn't particularly care whether we had a spill or not. It wasn't a big item at the Chamber of Commerce here, but it was a big item in the bush, in the coastal villages, and that got transmitted to the Congress.
Right.
It also got transmitted to Juneau.
Well, the chamber's
So-
biggest thing right now is making sure that that $2 billion gets back in the governor's HB 110. And you're talking about that we had two strong governors that were saying, we've got to have double hull tankers, we've got to have all these safety precautions. We have a governor now who was a ConocoPhillips lobbyist at one point and also was on the team that argued against the Alaska fishermen on behalf of Exxon. He was part of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals crew that went and got the $5 billion cut to $2.5 billion. Sean Parnell, you already got $2.5 billion back for Exxon. You don't have to give it back every year from the state of Alaska. I mean, that's who they're working for now.
Yeah.
The poor folks on the Gulf have a lot of states that are run even more by the oil companies than our state is. And you can see that go to sleep down there, no matter what efforts are made. Everything we hoped, and we at Prince William Sound, we worked a lot with the Gulf people, establishing contacts with them. I mean, just watching it being put to sleep by constant oil company propaganda and by not much support from D.C.
And I could add to that, what Walt's talking about is absolutely critical when we take it to the Arctic. And we've been talking for years about, we learned that citizen oversight is absolutely critical. Instead of having just government and industry make these deals behind closed doors, the Prince William Sound Regional Citizens Advisory Council has been a stellar model for how to do this kind
And
of
it's
thing.
the only one we're going to have like that because they immediately watered down Open 90.
Well, but no, we're still pushing
Open
it for-
91, they changed.
We need one for the Arctic, where all the tribal entities and the Alaska Native Marine Mammal Co-Management Commissions can participate, where the stakeholders that are potentially the victims of an accident have a say. And they don't right now.
But
so.
you know, the lobbyists and so forth, they erode these things as quick as they can.
Yeah.
One of the big differences between Exxon Valdez and Deepwater Horizon is how quick the lawyers closed in.
Yeah.
And we're getting
They
the same
learned their
thing.
lesson.
And they,
How could it be just a year after Exxon Valdez, we get Open 90, and then they water it down the year afterwards? I still can't figure that out. How did we let that happen?
Yeah.
But they tried to do that after Exxon Valdez, but Governor Cooper, Governor Hickel, who followed him, were not having any part of that, and the Congress was not having any part of it. The Bush 41 was all for it. And passing Open 90, we got no help whatsoever from the federal administration. That was pretty much Congress and the state of Alaska doing that. And we're lucky to have George Mitchell as the leader in the Senate and strong enough to overcome the House. So.
Well, we've got to run to a break. I want to come back and talk about the promises that are being offered up to Alaskans right now when it comes to the Arctic, when it comes to Pebble Mine, when it comes to some other development and why we should believe them. Here's a big hint. Probably shouldn't. Yeah, we'll be right back with more Up North. Welcome back. I'm so glad you're joining us. Our panel, we've got lots of questions to ask you later from our audience, but it seems to me like this whole, let's talk about the Arctic specifically, even though Pebble, next week we're doing a Pebble show. By God, I'm doing it. But the Arctic right now, you know, there don't seem to be even the same Alaskans or legislators or people in our government pushing for the safety measures that would be needed. I mean, do they have to see, like, you know, the Coca-Cola bear flopping around in oil for people to be like, oh, crap, maybe that wasn't a good idea? Or...
Well, they're all drinking the same Kool-Aid, really. And the thing is we've heard the same promises 40 years ago. Walt heard them.
They're not even making the promises now.
Well, they're saying, look, relax. There's a very low risk of a catastrophic well blowout. If there is, we've got all these toys up there that's going to respond to it. We'll clean it up real quickly. There will be very little damage, and everything's fine. What we know, however, is those promises are hollow. They will be broken. We know that there will be risk of a catastrophic blowout. The government's done their own modeling of a 2 million barrel blowout that would spread over to Russian waters and Russian shores. That would last for 74 days. They will not be able to respond to it, contain it, or recover it.
They can't even get fuel already refined to Nome without the Russians helping.
There would be catastrophic environmental damage. There'd be no way to compensate people adequately for what the damage was, and there'd be no way to restore the injured ecosystem. It could cause permanent damage to the Arctic Ocean. We know that.
So what's needed is citizen oversight. It's the only thing that keeps the vigilance up.
That's right.
And it's working in Prince William Sound. And there's not the policy push in Congress, even from our own delegation, to get that citizen oversight. I know, for instance, that where they want to drill in the Chukchi is right over shallow areas that are very good feeding grounds for walrus. That's the last place where the ice disappears, where the walrus can still feed. The locals are very concerned about this. Who do they talk to about that?
Right. Their senator?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
The state is spending zero money on spill recovery research.
Right. How sick is
The
that?
federal government is spending a pitiful amount, and the industry is probably spending an equally pitiful amount
Because why would
they won't tell you what they're doing.
Well, what they do is they really, you know, they privatize the profits and then they socialize the risk.
Right.
And everybody else whether it be the Gulf of Mexico or Prince William Sound, that's who has to pay.
Yeah.
And you know, I talked to a couple of folks about the numbers of suicides after the '89 spill, and how many people. It was over 30 people that we had figured that we knew. And
Our mayor in Cordova.
right, and who listed Exxon in the
And there's a
suicide
suicide
note.
note.
So I figured out what the percentage of people were on the Gulf of Mexico who were affected compared to how many were here, it would be 45,000 people committing suicide over the next 5 years.
Yeah, let's hope not.
It was, I mean, because it's so devastating. It's not devastating the first day and the second day where you don't have that shock factor. It's when it starts rolling in and your wife's like, you know what? I'm not doing this. We've lost the house. Look, now we're losing the car and we've been living in it. We don't have jobs. It's like all of this economic disaster that really comes up. And I'm not trying to be dramatic about it, but it sucked.
Well, oil is messy business. We know it. We know it's finite. We know it's causing. Even if there's no major spill from the Arctic, there's all that carbon's going to go right into the atmosphere, right into the oceans. Going to, further accelerate climate change that's destroying Arctic ecosystems. We know offshore drilling is a lose-lose for the Arctic Ocean, and we know we need to hasten our transition to a more efficient energy economy. We know how to do this stuff. We're just not. We don't have the political.
We don't have the lobbyists.
Yeah.
The President's Commission said that there had been no change in spill response for 20 years. And I would say there's been no change in spill response for 50 years.
Right.
No, there's,
I know,
they're still using the same old junk.
I'd have a lot more respect for
Rags.
that Conoco Science building over at UAA if they were actually studying, oil spill response and cleanup instead of better ways to drill, baby, drill. We got to take a quick break. We'll come back with questions. All right, welcome back. Lots and lots of questions here. First one, why not? Let's turn Alaska into a national park. Send the oil and gas companies packing and impose an income tax and sales tax to cover the loss. This is the exact same kind of argument that, like if somebody is robbed, you would say, gee, you've spent money before, what's your problem? Or, you got raped? Really? No, you've had sex before, what's your problem? Just because people want it done responsibly and without a spill does not mean that they don't want it to happen at all. And that's sort of like y'all are a bunch of hippies, tree huggers, environmentalists, you can suck it. That's not what this is about. Anybody else want to hit that?
Well, yeah, absolutely. The two preeminent issues with energy right now with oil are, one, we have to start using it more efficiently and using less of it, and we know how to do that. Some economies produce a unit of economic output on half the amount of energy that we use and waste here in the United States. So number one, we've got to wean ourselves to a transitional, sustainable energy economy. But secondly, as we're producing oil, we have to do it as safely as possible.
Right.
And that's what we don't have
I'm not
confidence
ever
that the
getting-
government and Shell is going to do.
I'm not ever getting on a plane with a solar panel. All right, let's just get that.
But you'll get
use
on a plane
oil.
with biofuels.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I'm fine with using oil. I'm fine with us doing that. But I'm not fine with
Do it
just being like,
responsibly.
really suck it. You got an oil spill. What's your
Yeah.
problem, lady? You drive a car. Like, really? Is that, what are
Is
you,
that the level?
7th grade?
Yeah.
Shannyn, best quote you ever said to me. Oh, pillow talk. I'm from Maine, and whether you're from Maine or Alaska, fishing isn't what you do, it's who you are. And yes, and I think that's true with the people in the Arctic right now. I mean, I want to save the whales so my friends up there can eat them. This isn't like a Drew Barrymore movie for me,
The reason Prince William Sound is so well taken care of is most of the border fishermen.
Yeah.
Right,
18 out of 20.
Right, exactly. But I did some work for the BBC down there a couple years ago, and I just walked across this slough, and my footprints filled up with oil sheen.
It's still
I mean,
there.
it's still there. And they call it now Diesel Beach. I know, isn't that charming? Let's have a picnic, except I'm nauseous. Can you speak up to the regional oil remaining on the beaches below the surface that continues to leach out that are there? I just did.
Yeah, it's still there. There's probably 20 to 30,000
It's
gallons.
not there like it was there.
No, but it's asphalted over on the surface, and so it's formed this anoxic condition, and it's low on nutrients and it's low on oxygen. So they're doing some experiments with bubbling down hydrogen peroxide and some phosphates and nitrates to try to stimulate biodegradation of that. But that's part of the injury. The biggest part of the residual injury is the fact that most of the injured fish and wildlife populations haven't recovered. We don't have a herring fishery anymore in Prince William Sound. 18-1 killer whales. We lost 29 killer whales from the Exxon Valdez oil spill from 2 pods.
And we lost more fishermen than that, for sure.
Yeah, well, certainly, yeah.
I mean, and I'm not doing like
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, the amount of loss that happens is never ever compensated. If Exxon had paid their $5 billion fee that day that, downtown and when it was like $5 million in charges, oh my God, if they would have paid that, it still wouldn't have fixed it. So
That's right.
why don't
There's
we
no
try
amount of
to
money.
not
Yeah.
have the spills instead of you're never going to be able to pay for the damages?
An ounce of prevention.
I really want to add that the herring is a key species for a whole lot of other. I mean, it's essentially a forage fish. It comes in huge abundances, and all the marine mammals and the birds, everything is all keyed on the arrival of those herring.
I know, and that's this time of year, and
Yeah.
I used to
And-
tender herring.
And they're like way depleted, and there's dispute because there's 2 years data missing. There's dispute how much of that is due to the spill, but it's inarguable that the herring are really badly depleted now.
Well, and it was magic fishing herring because
It is
I'd be
magic,
coming
yeah.
up the inside passage, and it was like going from a black and white movie into a color one. And it was just like, it was getting greener, all the whales, porpoises, everything was traveling at the same time at about 9 knots. Summer comes at a 9-knot pace. I'm just telling you, I've seen it.
Sounds like a blues song,
And it was
doesn't it?
following the herring. That's what it was all about. Compare and contrast the 1988 Big Miracle Response Team for the 3 whales versus the 2012 Arctic drilling by Shell. Are we any more prepared?
Well,
No.
yeah, Bill Allen both times. They screwed up both times.
No, but think about it. Like those 3 whales stuck in the ice and how the response was, and they had to
Right.
get the Russians and this and that. If we had a spill, are we any better equipped?
Answer is no.
No, far less equipped. There is nothing going on in research right now that would answer an oil spill in the ice.
It would be devastating. And they wouldn't recover it. They wouldn't contain it. I mean, look at the Gulf. They got maybe 3% of the oil that came out recovered. And Exxon Valdez, maybe 7%. A good response is maybe 10%. So even in the most fantastic conditions, 90% of that oil is going to stay in the environment, in the water, and it's going to cause the damage it's causing.
Well, they always say though, oil it's organic, it's natural.
After
I love
Exxon,
that.
after Congress passed Open 90, we worked with the industry to pull together a team to really get into research. It lasted 2 years, and the industry canceled the team in '92 in London, 2 years after Open 90 was passed. So that's, what you can expect more of from.
I think there was, I really remember how so many well-intentioned people descended on Valdez, which is not all that easy to get to after that
Right.
spill, wanting to do something about the wildlife, wanting to volunteer, they weren't opportunists all, they were there, they wanted to make a difference.
People wanted to help.
That did happen. I also remember the fisherman who was doing more than the oil skimmers with his own boat and 5-gallon bucket.
Tom Copeland,
Yeah.
Cordova fisherman. Yeah.
Yep.
Good guy. Yeah, and that's what's going to happen in the Arctic.
We weren't there to clean it up. I mean, we were there to sort of push it around and make a show. And they built boardwalks for Dan Quayle to come. And I remember taking this guy from Houston out on my boat, and he had his whole family tree on his belt buckle, and he had a cowboy hat. He was up here from Houston, and he said, "Lady, I will give you $1,000 to take me back to land," when he turned totally green in like 4-foot rollers in a 100-foot boat. It was great. Super effective. It was ridiculous. We'll be back here again next year to talk about the anniversary of this and what we haven't learned, but we're trying to learn more all the time. And thanks to my guests here. And, we need to just keep the pressure up on Shell, make them keep their promises, don't you think?
And government as well.
And the government, make them actually make promises. And
Yeah.
we don't really seem to, and vote for people who aren't complete.
Watch out for the erosion, because they erode it right away, just like Walt was talking about.
Yeah, once you get it, and then they take it apart. Well, that was fun. Thanks again to Fred Newman and my panel. We'll be back next week with more Up North. Going fast.
For God's sakes, don't vote for Romney or any other Republican.
I think you should open the show with that.